September 3, 1943. Southern Italy. A hillside overlooking the coastal plain near Sapri, 2 kilometers inland from the Tyrrhenian Sea. 2 British infantry companies lie concealed in terraced vineyards and stone walls on the eastern slope. They have been in position since 2100 hours. It is now 045 hours. The night is warm, moonless, and silent except for the sound of insects. No wind. No movement. Below them, in the valley, a German column has halted on the narrow coastal road. Trucks. Personnel carriers. No tanks, but enough vehicles to indicate a full company, possibly more. The vehicles are dark. Engines off. No lights. The column stopped 20 minutes ago and has not moved since. The British troops are fully armed. Rifles loaded, Bren guns positioned with interlocking fields of fire. Mortar crews ready with ranging already calculated. Officers have distributed orders for a night ambush. The plan was rehearsed that afternoon. Every man knows his sector, his target, his fallback position. The German column is less than 300 meters away, well within effective range. The British have the high ground, concealment, and surprise. The conditions are optimal. At 0247 hours, the company commander lies behind a stone wall with his field telephone. He has not given the order to commence firing. The assault was scheduled to begin at 0030 hours. It has not begun. The soldiers wait. Fingers rest on triggers. The Germans below remain still. The 2 British companies are from the 2001st Guards Brigade, part of the advance force for Operation Avalanche. The Allied invasion of mainland Italy at Salerno, scheduled to begin in 6 days. Their current mission is reconnaissance and interdiction, identify German positions, disrupt supply routes, and gather intelligence on enemy strength and movement patterns in the region. The companies moved inland from a concealed beach landing the previous night. They established observation posts overlooking the main coastal road, which serves as a critical supply route for German forces withdrawing northward from Calabria, while simultaneously reinforcing defensive positions around Salerno. Disrupting traffic on this road was a primary objective. The German column appeared on the road at 0145 hours, moving north. The British observers reported it immediately. The company commander, Major Peter Ashford, assessed the situation and decided to engage. The terrain favored an ambush. The column would be trapped on the road with limited maneuver space. The British could inflict significant casualties and withdraw before German reinforcements arrived. Ashford moved his companies into assault positions. The plan was straightforward. Mortars would strike the lead and rear vehicles to immobilize the column. Machine guns and rifles would engage personnel. The attack would last no more than 5 minutes. Then the British would withdraw eastward into the hills before dawn. But when the column halted at 0225 hours, something changed. The vehicles stopped in a scattered formation, not a tactical deployment. Soldiers dismounted, but they did not take defensive positions. They simply stood beside the vehicles or sat on the road. Some appeared to be smoking. Others were talking in low voices, audible as murmurs from the hillside above. Ashford, observing through binoculars, delayed the order to fire. He wanted to understand why the column had stopped and whether it posed an immediate threat or was simply resting. Minutes passed. The scheduled attack time came and went. The column remained stationary. Ashford did not give the signal. British infantry doctrine for night ambushes was clear and specific. Achieve surprise, maximize initial shock, deliver concentrated fire within the first 60 seconds to disable command structure and heavy weapons. Withdraw before the enemy can organize a response. Ashford's men had trained for this scenario repeatedly. Night combat was emphasized during their preparation for the Italian campaign. The goal was to degrade German mobility and morale through sudden, violent engagements that left the enemy uncertain and reactive. The Bren gun crews knew their procedure: controlled bursts, traversing fire across assigned sectors. Aim for vehicle cabs first, then personnel in the open. The riflemen knew to pick individual targets, prioritize officers and radio operators, and maintain fire discipline to avoid wasting ammunition. The mortar crews had sighted the road. The first rounds would be high, explosive, targeting the front and rear of the column to prevent escape. Follow-up rounds would target concentrations of troops. The timing was rehearsed: mortars open, then machine guns, then rifles. 60 seconds of coordinated fire, then cease and withdraw. Every soldier in the two companies had participated in live fire exercises simulating exactly this situation. They knew what to expect: the noise, the chaos, the brief, intense violence of a successful ambush. They had executed it before, in training and in combat. The sequence was automatic. The Germans below were exposed and vulnerable. They had not established security. No sentries were visible on the perimeter. No one was scanning the hillsides. The column had simply stopped, and the soldiers had dismounted as if they were on a routine march, not in contested territory. The British soldiers could see this through their sights. They could see individual Germans standing in clusters, rifles slung, postures relaxed. The targets were clear. The range was optimal. The outcome of an attack was predictable. The order should have come. The soldiers expected it. Some shifted their weight, preparing for recoil. Others adjusted their aim slightly, refining their point of impact. They were ready. But the order did not come. Ashford lowers the binoculars. He does not reach for the field telephone. He raises the binoculars again, focuses on a group of Germans near a truck. 4 men, one is gesturing. Another is sitting on the running board. A third is drinking from a canteen. The fourth is looking down, head bowed, shoulders slumped. Ashford moves his view to another vehicle. More men standing. One is adjusting his boot. Another is leaning against the truck bed, head tilted back, as if looking at the sky. He scans the entire column. 30 vehicles. Approximately 150 men visible. Not all are dismounted. Some remain in the trucks. No weapons are being handled. No officers are directing movement. No preparation for combat is evident. Ashford lowers the binoculars again. His jaw tightens. He looks at the field telephone. His hand moves toward it, then stops. He does not pick it up. The seconds pass. The Bren gunner 10 meters to his left is watching him. Ashford does not meet his eyes. Ashford picks up the binoculars a third time. He focuses on the road ahead of the column, then behind it, empty in both directions. The column is alone, isolated. He lowers the binoculars. He sets them down carefully on the stone wall. He does not reach for the telephone. Nothing happens. At 152 hours, the German column has been stationary for 27 minutes. The British companies have been in assault position for over an hour. No shots have been fired. No orders have been issued. The soldiers begin to shift, not obviously. Just small adjustments. A rifleman changes his grip. A Bren gunner exhales slowly and resettles into his position. A mortar crew leader glances toward the company commander, then back at his weapon. The expectation of imminent action creates its own strain. Muscles held tense for extended periods begin to ache. Eyes focused through sights for too long begin to lose sharpness. The soldiers were prepared for a brief, violent engagement followed by rapid movement. They were not prepared to hold position indefinitely without explanation. One of the junior officers, a lieutenant positioned 30 meters south of Ashford, crawls forward to the major's position. He moves slowly, quietly. When he reaches Ashford, he whispers a question. Ashford shakes his head once. The lieutenant waits, expecting further instruction. Ashford says nothing. The lieutenant withdraws. The German column shows no signs of resuming movement. Some soldiers have sat down on the road. A few have moved to the roadside and appear to be relieving themselves. There is no sense of urgency, no indication that they are aware of danger. At 02:58 hours, a German officer walks along the column, speaking to groups of men. He does not shout. He does not gesture emphatically. He simply walks, stops, speaks, and moves on. The men he speaks to nod or respond briefly, then return to waiting. The British soldiers watch this through their sights. They see the officer. They see the relaxed postures. They see men who are not preparing to fight. At 03:03 hours, Ashford picks up the field telephone. He cranks the handle. He speaks quietly into the handset. The conversation lasts 15 seconds. He replaces the handset. He does not give the order to fire. Time continues to stretch. The night remains silent. The valley remains still. Major Peter Ashford had been in combat since North Africa. He had led men through Tunisia, Sicily, and now onto the Italian mainland. He understood the mechanics of war. He understood how to kill efficiently. He also understood how to assess a situation beyond the immediate tactical picture. What he observed through the binoculars was not a German combat unit preparing to engage or maneuver. It was a unit that had stopped because it had to. The vehicles were not positioned defensively. They were simply parked. The soldiers were not alert. They were exhausted. Ashford also noted the composition of the column. Transport trucks, not fighting vehicles. No half-track mounted weapons visible. No obvious heavy equipment. This was not a frontline combat unit. It was a logistics or support unit, possibly a medical unit, possibly a headquarters element. They were moving at night, which suggested they were avoiding observation, but they had stopped in the open, which suggested they were either lost, out of fuel, or waiting for orders. The scheduled invasion at Salerno was 6 days away. Ashford's mission was to gather intelligence and disrupt supply lines. Attacking this column would achieve the latter, but potentially compromise the former. If the British revealed their presence by engaging, German forces in the area would be alerted to Allied reconnaissance activity. This could lead to increased patrols, tightened security, and reduced opportunities for observation in the critical days before the invasion. More immediately, engaging the column would require the British to withdraw quickly. The noise of the attack would carry for kilometers. German units to the north and south would respond. The British companies would have to move through unfamiliar terrain, in darkness, carrying wounded if casualties occurred, with German forces converging on their last known position. Ashford weighed the value of destroying a stationary logistics column against the risk of compromising the broader mission. He concluded that the Germans below posed no immediate threat. They were not advancing. They were not establishing positions. They were simply stopped. He also considered what he saw through the binoculars. Men sitting on a road, tired, disorganized, waiting. They were not innocent, but they were not fighting. Killing them would not change the outcome of the war. It would just kill them. Ashford made his decision. He called battalion headquarters on the field telephone and reported the column's position and composition. He requested permission to disengage and continue reconnaissance. Permission was granted. He did not fire. At 03:15 hours, Ashford passed the order down the line: withdraw in sequence, maintain silence, rally point 2 kilometers east. The message was relayed by hand signals and whispered commands. The soldiers began moving. The Bren gun crews dismantled their weapons and packed them quietly. The mortar crews secured their tubes and base plates. The riflemen backed away from the stone walls and moved in a low crouch through the vineyards. The withdrawal was slow and deliberate. No one spoke. No equipment rattled. The British moved like shadows. By 03:35 hours, both companies had cleared the hillside and were moving east through olive groves and scrub brush. The German column remained on the road below, unaware that they had been observed, targeted, and spared. The British reached the rally point at 04:10 hours. Ashford conducted a head count. All personnel accounted for. No contact, no casualties. He issued orders for a brief rest, then continued movement eastward to establish a new observation post before dawn. No one questioned the decision not to engage. Ashford did not explain it. The soldiers understood that orders had changed. They did not ask why. The silence of the night remained unbroken. At 05:30 hours, as the first light appeared in the eastern sky, the British companies were 5 kilometers from the road. They established positions in wooded high ground and resumed observation of German movements in the valley. The column they had watched during the night was gone, presumably having resumed its journey northward. Ashford wrote a brief report for battalion. He noted the column's composition, time of observation, and estimated strength. He described it as a logistics unit, non-threatening, moving north. He did not mention that his companies had been in position to attack. He did not mention that the attack was cancelled. The report was filed and forwarded up the chain. No questions were asked. No follow-up was required. There is no record of Major Ashford's decision not to engage the German column on September 3, 1943. His operational report for that date describes observation and reconnaissance activities. It mentions a German column moving north on the coastal road. It does not mention assault positions, planned attacks, or decisions to stand down. The 21st Guards Brigade's War Diary for September 1943 contains daily entries noting patrols, observations, and minor skirmishes. The entry for September 3 lists reconnaissance activities, no contact, no elaboration. No after-action report was filed because no action occurred. No casualties were reported because no engagement took place. No commendation was issued because there was nothing to commend. No inquiry was conducted, because there was no failure to investigate. The soldiers in Ashford's companies did not discuss the night. There was nothing to discuss. They had taken positions, observed the enemy, and withdrawn. This was routine. The fact that they had been prepared to attack and did not was unremarkable to them. Orders changed. Situations evolved. Flexibility was expected. The German soldiers who stopped on the road that night left no record of the incident because, from their perspective, nothing happened. They stopped, rested, and continued. Whether they ever knew they were being watched is unknown. Whether they understood how vulnerable they were is uncertain. The gap in documentation is complete. The moment existed only for those who were there, and those who were there did not document it. The decision not to attack was a decision not to create a record. Silence produces no archives. Major Peter Ashford continued serving with the 21st Guards Brigade through the Italian campaign. He participated in the Salerno landings on September 9, 1943. He fought at Monte Cassino. He was wounded in April 1944 and evacuated to Britain. He returned to duty in June and served through the end of the war. He was promoted to lieutenant colonel in 1945. He left the Army in 1947 and returned to civilian life in Hampshire. He worked as a school teacher. He married. He did not speak publicly about his wartime service. He attended regimental reunions occasionally, but did not seek attention. In 1968, a historian researching the Italian campaign interviewed him for an oral history project. Ashford provided factual answers about troop movements, logistics, and command decisions. When asked if there were any moments that stood out, he paused and said, "There were many decisions. Some involved fighting. Some did not." He did not elaborate. The historian moved on to other questions. Ashford died in 1983. His military records were archived. They contain no annotation for September 3, 1943. Beyond routine reconnaissance activity, none of the soldiers from his companies who were present that night left written accounts mentioning the incident. Most returned home after the war and did not discuss their service in detail. A few attended reunions and shared general memories, but nothing specific about a night when nothing happened. The German unit that stopped on the road is unidentified. No records link a specific Wehrmacht or Luftwaffe logistics unit to that location on that date. They were one column among hundreds moving through southern Italy in September 1943, retreating, repositioning, and reorganizing as the Allied invasion pressure increased. What is certain is that no battle occurred on that hillside. No ambush was executed. No casualties were inflicted. The night passed quietly. September 3, 1943, a hillside in southern Italy. 2 British companies in assault positions. A German column halted on the road below. Weapons ready. Range calculated. Targets identified. The order to fire was not given. The battle that was supposed to begin did not begin. Major Peter Ashford looked through binoculars and saw something that made him decide not to act. He saw exhaustion. He saw disorganization. He saw men who were not threatening his position or his mission. He made a calculation. Tactical value versus operational risk. Immediate effect versus strategic consequence. What would be gained versus what might be lost. He chose not to fire. His soldiers followed that choice without question. The Germans below resumed their movement and continued north. The British withdrew and continued their mission. The night ended. The war continued. There is no plaque marking the hillside, no historical marker on the road, no record in the archives explaining what happened or why it did not happen. The decision was made, executed, and forgotten by everyone except the few who were there. And they are gone now. What remains is the silence itself, the absence of gunfire, the absence of casualties, the absence of documentation. A night when violence was expected, prepared for, and ultimately withheld. The guns did not fire. The battle did not begin. The decision not to act was as deliberate as any decision to attack. That is all.